Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Lines. My name is Sarah, I'm the artist behind Pinselgeschichten, and today I'm working some more on this page here, The Gathering, in the Outlander coloring book, using Prismacolor Premier colored pencils, and I'm going to talk to you about how I choose colors for clothes of a certain century and how I shade them and how I bring in a little tiny bit of reflection from light sources that are around the picture for one, and also in the picture reflecting on Jamie. So I hope you enjoy. So let's get started. I had said last week that I wanted to color the clothes next, and I'm gonna take a few shades that I had used beforehand in the skin tones. I'm going for grays mainly. Is there a little bit of cream maybe? So I'm gonna take the ginger. Is it ginger? No, it's beige. Gonna take, oh, that's a Polychromos pencil. That's from another picture. Gonna take all the browns, some of the grays, to color most of the grays. Warm grays, not so much. All right, so I want to stay as true to the colors that were used in Scotland at that point in time. So it's going to be reds, blues, greens, and browns for the jackets, and different kinds of patterns for the tartans. But I'm gonna start with this dude again, and since he's not really that much in the scene, he's just there at the edge of the scene, I'm gonna go with 50% gray and 90% gray for his jacket. So I'm just gonna start off coloring that in. There's a lot of earthy tones in, well, the time itself, so 1800s. But also in this picture, of course, because, well, this picture is from the 1800s, or this scene depicts the 1800s. So, of course, I'm gonna stay true to those colors and not take a hot pink, for example, to color Mrs. Fitz bodice here, for example. So there's going to be a lot of earthy tones. Also, this is quite the dark scene. There's, of course, fireplaces and candelabras, lots of candles, all of that. So we've got light sources off frame, off camera, pretty much. But they don't light up a dark room at night as much as modern lights do. So I'm just gonna stay way darker, of course, because you gotta think about light sources and the sort of light that hits objects. And if you want to color or draw something quite realistically when it comes to choosing colors, of course, for this particular kind of scene, you would very likely have a lot of browns and grays in your scene. So going over it once more with my lighter gray, just to blend everything together, make it look cool. That's the thing about Prismacolors. They're so creamy that you don't have to layer 5 or 6 layers on top of each other to get a very vibrant, very smooth kind of result. You can get away with 2, pretty much. Just a little more of the dark brown for detail. And there we go, jacket done. This is also something that comes with creaminess of the Prismacolors. You really can work a little faster than, say, with the Polychromos. Because they are so creamy, you can get rid of these white valleys in your picture very fast, and that results in maybe a little bit of a quicker work time. So if you don't have a lot of time at hand and you want to get a bigger picture drawn or colored, nonetheless, you can just go ahead, choose the Prismacolors, and on these kinds of smooth papers, they lay down super quickly. And you can just, well, be done with a piece. On to the next dude. For one, he's got a bow in his hair, so I'm gonna take one of the more vibrant browns here. I think it is burnt sienna. Sienna brown. Well, close enough. Gonna take that and shade it with the 90% French gray, because I really like that particular color for shading here. It's very close to what I would use with the Polychromos. That would be sepia or walnut brown. So it's very close to that shade, and that's one of my favorite shading colors aside from indigo. Fun fact, there's not a really great indigo tone in the Prismacolors, so I gotta get around that later on. But since I just colored his bow tie with the brown, I'm gonna, of course, also use that for his jacket. So I'm gonna go in and just lay down a whole lot of sienna brown, just as a base color. I'm not gonna regard any kinds of buttons or embroidery or anything on those jackets here for the guys. I plan to work with gel pens later on to get that detail covered. So I can pretty much just cover up all of the buttons. I don't have to color around them. And I don't have to think about colors yet. I can do that when I go with the Prismacolors, but very likely they're just gonna be copper, gold, and silver. So let's see, he's got kind of a shirt peeking out, and the bodice and the dress of the girl is visible here. So I'm gonna have this jacket stop there. So I can go in with my 90% gray and start shading. And I should also get my goldenrod pencil from last week, because there's a tiny little bit of color also reflecting on some of the fabric here. So I'm gonna add a little bit of that color later. I'm hoping I can remove all the background noise from the video. We've got some landscaping around the house today, and they're maybe on audio, so sorry about that. But for whatever reason, I don't get the schedule of the landscapers when they're around, so I did not know they would be here today. Also, Jan is watching TV, so there might be some background noise. I'm trying to get that out of the audio because it might be a little distracting or irritating, I don't know. More and more color onto the sleeve. This is where the very dark shades are, because pretty much everything is blocking the light. And then, just like before, I can go on top with my sienna brown once more, blend the two colors together and get a very smooth finish before I go in and bring in the definition kind of dark lines, like for the folds of the jacket, for example, and of course also the reflection of light with my goldenrod pencil. Just a little more. All right, now I can go into the details, but I gotta sharpen my pencil for that. So I just go around all of the lines the illustrator gave me, and I'm just making them stand out a little more. Just to not lose any detail. Also, I think especially with these fabric folds here, it's makes your picture maybe a little more dynamic, because in this case there's not a big fat brown lump, but these folds pretty much break up that lump, and that makes for a little more of a dynamic picture, and it doesn't look as block-like, if you know what I mean. So I think it just makes it look nicer and a little more real. That's why I think it is very much worth your time to go over those lines once again with a little bit of shading or something. It's with other objects too, of course. You can't really overwork something with colored pencil. It definitely happens with other media. Mixed media, I think, especially. It's very tempting because you kind of are just in the flow and you can't really stop, and you want to play with your supplies and you love it and such. So it's really easy to overwork something with mixed media, but it also happens a lot or very easily with watercolors, I think. So there's just, at least for me, there's some supplies that are just prone to be overworked, and you really, or at least I really have to think about stopping at a certain point. Same goes with details when it comes to gel pens, for example. The end of your picture, and the more abstract a picture is, the more I have to make sure I don't overwork things. I wonder if it's the same for you, if you realize that in your own artwork, that you maybe tend to do so as well. But yeah, that's just something that happens. So I'm gonna move on to a couple of grays, maybe a little cooler gray for whatever his pants, or it's an apron or whatever, because he looks like a server, but I don't want to give him the same apron color. Or do I? Hold on, now I gotta think if I want to do so for like I did with Mrs. Baird's. But why do I always call her Mrs. Baird? She's Mrs. Fitz. Mrs. Fitzgibbons. I think I'm gonna go with the same apron that she wears, same kind of shade. So I'm moving on to warm grays. And I'm gonna put a little bit of a darker shade on top. And then I'm gonna use bit of a cooler gray. Where is it? That's a little too light. Let's go for this darker cool gray to go over the fold of the apron once more. Also gonna add just the tiniest bit of the French gray. And there's his apron done. On to the lady. I want to start with her bodice, and I think a little yellow would be nice back there. So I'm gonna go for the 10-12, I think. Yeah, there it is. And that's called Jasmine. Fun fact, I would have thought jasmine is a little more of a teal color or a emerald green kind of color. But I guess not. I think that's just how I associate things. So onto her bodice. Oh, that's a lovely color. I like that. And I need a little bit of a darker tone. I think the 942, and I guess I used that before. Yes, I did. I used it last week, and that's yellow ochre. I'm not gonna regard the string here on her bodice for now. I'm just gonna color that as well with gel pens later on. She needs a little more of a darker shade, so I'm gonna bring in the goldenrod as a shading color this time. There we go. And then she's wearing a shirt, and I think I want to go cool gray with that. Just as a contrast, because she has very many warm colors around her. Also, this jacket has warm colors, and I want her to definitely be in the background, so I'm pushing her back by using cool colors. And there's the so famous breakage of the pencils. And there's also breakage of the pencil sharpener. Great. It's a lovely day, don't you think? Work is really starting well. Let's see. Let's hopefully not smear a lot of pigment on the picture. That looks good. Go. And the lead breaks again. I don't like that. That makes me not want to use these pencils. And I haven't dropped them or anything. I'm really careful with my art supplies. So I would say this is definitely lack of quality. Going in with my darker gray. Just to shade. And I'm also gonna use a tiny little bit of my French gray. All right, now we get to Colum. Colum is not only the laird of the clan, but also he is dressed a little finer. So I want to go with maybe a purple jacket. This one, I like this color, 996. That's the pencil, and this is called Black Grape. Well, that fits with the Rhenish. That's lovely. So let's go for his arm first. And the Mackenzie tartan has greens and grays in them. So I think that fits pretty well with the grape color. His bow tie is also gonna, not bow tie, his hair bow is also gonna be of the same color. And I think his vest as well. So not only the jacket, he's gonna be clothed in very fine clothes. If you have seen the show, you might remember this scene with the dude from Edinburgh. Remember? He was sewing the coat for Colum. In there they used very fine kind of fabric, and I think I kind of want to play homage to that, or give homage to that scenery by making him, for one, stand out, but also not give him the standard brown or gray jacket. So where's the sleeve going? That goes here. And now there's this what's the word? I do have the German word in my head now. Picture? Yeah, let's call it a picture. There's that, and there's halfway down there's liquid. Or is it metal and it is just details on it? I think, hold on. So we got the cap. We would have two liquid lines. No, this is just embellishment on that picture. So I'm gonna disregard that. I don't have to color in liquid. But for shading now, I need a darker color, and I think, where are my grays? There they are. I I want to go with a 1056, and that is 70% warm gray. Is it? Yeah, warm gray. So I'm going to use that as my shading color. I'm gonna place it wherever an object casts a shadow. So in this case here, the brooch and the tartan do cast the shadow. So I'm just gonna shade it right there. There, his face or his head casts the shadow. And down here it's his whole torso. And we've got the sleeve here. There we go. This bottle of Rhenish has glass on top and column is right behind it, so I'm gonna color that glass part right away with it. Just like all in one go. You can't really distinguish the bottle from the jacket as of now, but I'm gonna get to that. First though, gotta go over everything with my second layer of grape color. There we go. Now I gotta bring in some more detail and shading, because you can't really see the details of the jacket. Just like before, it was a brown blob. Now it is a gray blob. So I'm gonna work on that. Bring in a little more of my cool gray. I'm just going over the lines the illustrator gave me. For example, here you can now see it's a different kind of clothing item. There are folds here. I'm just gonna make them stand out a little more. All right. Onto the bottle. That was the next thing. I need a little bit of a cool blue for that. And that's the trouble I do have with the polychromos. Not the polychromos. With the Prismacolors. I don't really like the cool blues or the dark blues they have in their assortment. Because there's just shades missing for me. But well, I can make it work. I'm gonna shade a little more down here. All right. The rest for the bottles and such I'm gonna do with gel pens onto his tartan. Like I had said just a minute ago, the Mackenzies do have green and gray as their tartan colors. Let's see which one I like. I like the 908, this 908, this one here. It's fairly dark. 1, 2, 3, and pencils in. I'm just gonna bring in a little bit of that green here. I'm only regarding the line work so much. Just gonna add a bit of green and then bring in a cool light gray. There we go. Cool gray, cool gray, cool gray. There we go. Let's go for the 20% cool gray. And then I'm gonna bring in a little bit of a darker cool gray just to start shading, because there's a lot of folds on these tartan bits here as well. And I would normally now shade with indigo, but this is just way too light. I'm thinking about maybe bringing in, you can see it here, this is not what I would call indigo, like a dark indigo. Way too bluish, but wow, and there's no other color in the set that would work as indigo. There we go. Again, the brooch I'm not gonna work on with the pencils. I'm gonna do that with gel pens because I like it to be silver. And that would be column. Let's look at the clock. Still got enough time, so I can move on to Dougal, and I'm gonna start with his tartan, not with his jacket, because he's wearing exactly the same tartan as Column, because they're both Mackenzies. Go figure. So I'm bringing in the green first. Now I do have two glasses here that are in front of clothes. So the first one here from Column. And then there's a little bit of a tartan bit here, but then you he wears a belt, so the rest of the glass would be belt, not tartan. So I'm just gonna leave that for now. Take care of all the green parts first. Onto the light cool gray. So I'm pretty much working exactly the same way as I did before on columns tartan, just bringing the two colors together. This bottle here, I just, not the bottle, the jar or pitcher or whatever you want to call it, is made out of glass too. So I can color it right away. At least that section of the picture. Onto the cooler gray, the little darker one. I'm gonna start shading the folds. And again, a little bit of the indigo blue, just very, very little, to shade some of the darkest bits of the tartan. And there I'm going more for the green parts to shade those with indigo. There we go. So I've got the background in at the glasses, and now I can go on shading that one here, for example. I'm not gonna shade the big picture yet. Gonna do so later when I actually have the liquid in, because there might be a little bit of a shimmer or something going on there. Need a dark gray. Let's take this one. And again, anything that is highlights and such, I'm gonna take care of later. When it is time to bring in the, what's it called? The gel pens. So I'm gonna go for his belt next. And I want the 941. It's a little bit more yellowish than the sienna brown I had used before. Again, not taking care of the belt buckle because gel pens. But I can shade. So first with the indigo, then with the dark warm gray. Just outlining things a little more. Making them separate from each other a little better. There we go. Doubled start and done. On to his coat. I think he would wear something of that brown that I used in the buckle. So I'm just gonna use that pencil, because he's only second in command. He's not as well dressed as Colum is. Colum being the laird and having to stand out a bit more. And I've got breakage again. This is so not fun. Let's try the short lead tip. Maybe that works a little better. But he's gonna wear a different kind of color vest. I think I'm gonna give it maybe a gray tone. I don't want to go yellow. I don't think Dougal would wear yellow, so let's go with grays. And I'm gonna go with 50% warm gray. Oh, no. Oh. I have to combine it with the brown because I just realized this is not the jacket. This is the jacket. So let's layer a little bit of that light brown underneath. Bring in the warm gray on top. And then color the rest of the jacket. And now I can go on to shading. I want to stay a little lighter, not use the 90% dark gray, French gray. So I'm gonna go, which color? Don't want to go as dark as these. This one is my main color, so maybe the 1082 could work really well. And I'm gonna start by shading this, and I just saw didn't really give him a light to bounce off of the jacket, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of the goldenrod here. Just very little, because there's not a lot of areas where the light would bounce off very well. But back to Dougal's jacket. So I'm gonna finish the right-hand side of the jacket first before I move on to the left-hand side. I kind of don't feel like bouncing back and forth today, at least not with Dougal. So I'm gonna bring in my second layer of light umber. And only now I'm gonna bring in the 90% French gray to very lightly touch up on shadows, but really very lightly, and adding some of that pigment here and there. And also, of course, adding color to the folds and such. So that would be number one, like side number one of the jacket, and I'm gonna shade the vest underneath right away. And now on to the second part of the jacket. And the last little part of the sleeve. And of course, just like before, I'm gonna bring in the light umber again for another layer of the light brown. And you can see how quickly you can get rid of those white little valleys in the paper. Because the Prismacolors really almost like soak into the paper. That's how creamy they are. Onto the French grain 90% for the very dark shadows, and again also for folds in the clothes, just to make things again stand out, have a little more contrast, a little more definition.
And of course I'm gonna bring in a little bit of the goldenrod to add just a little bit of a shimmer onto the clothes from light reflection in the room. Wrong pencil, this one. There we go. That would be Dougal Mackenzie. And I can move on to this fella here. I think he will, because he's wearing a wig and everything, I think I want a little more of a blue for him. So he's probably gonna wear some fine clothes as well. There I do struggle with blues. Let's take this one here as my main color. So he might be, I don't know the first name, Arthur Duncan, like Gillis's husband. That might be him. So he would wear some fine clothes as well. Then I'm gonna bring in, is there another color to shade? Not really. So I'm gonna bring in indigo blue. And I will probably layer some gray over it because this is just way too light and vibrant for me, but it has the right color. There's not really another warm blue in it that is not turquoise, or there's like no Prussian blue or something. At least I haven't found it. Oops. There went the pencils. So I'm not gonna be surprised if there's gonna be breakage at that or on that lead. I might not even have to use a lot of gray to tone down the indigo. I will, however, use it for the folds in the clothes, just to make them stand out a little more, just like before with all the other guys. But this, what is it called? slate gray, which has quite a bit of a blue tint. It really tones down the indigo enough to not have to layer another gray color on top. So dark gray. There we go. I'm taking the 70% warm dark gray for the very dark shadows. And the final layer of the gray slate just to smudge out some of the very dark warm gray here. There we go. I can now go on to the shirt that kind of peeks through down here. Or maybe it's his face. Could be, not his face, his skin. But nonetheless, it's gonna get a beige tone with 50% French gray on top. For the vest, I want to have a cool light gray because I think that does fit best. For one, it makes the blue jacket pop, but also it fits very well with his jacket. So I'm with his wig. So I'm just gonna go for cool grays. And where's my other pencil? Here, I'm taking a little more of a warm gray, a darker warm gray for shading as well. Just a little bit. There we go. Oh, and he has eyebrows, so just forgot. So let's give him a cool gray, a warm gray tint. And of course a little bit of reflection of the fireplace and the candles and such. In his clothes there's candles here, so he's gonna have a little bit of a reflection on the fabric here. And very close to the hand as well. The most reflection will of course be on Jamie, because he's sitting pretty much in behind the candles from the viewer's point of view. So that would be that. Let's look at the time. All right, I still have a little more time to color, but I'm gonna be back in a second. I gotta take a quick break. All right, on to Jamie. I think he would wear something of an olive green because it fits really well with his hair. And then there's also repetition in the color green. So I'm taking these two, 1097 and 1091 for his jacket. And for the vest, I need a little bit, let's take the 1098. So I'm gonna start with his jacket. And I'm also gonna use that color for his bow. And this color was, by the way, moss green, and now I'm gonna go on top with green ochre. And since Jamie is sitting right behind the candle holder, he's gonna be a little lighter towards the center. So you can see I'm shading him way more towards the top. And now here towards the bottom. I'm gonna disregard the candle holder because I'm gonna go on top with dark gray probably, so I can cover up any green that is on the candle holder. And now I can go back to the moss green, bring in the second layer. A little more of the ochre. Now I can use that green ochre for the folds. Right. And of course, now I can move on with the artichoke pencil for coloring the vest. And there's glass again, so I'll just color the background right away and shade the glass once I've shaded that vest. And I'm gonna use, let's see, what kind of pencil? Maybe, what do you know? I'm gonna use the 1085, which is peach beige, as the shading color. Because this is a very light tone, so it doesn't need a lot of shading. And for the folds, I'm gonna take French Gray 50. And there's the landscapers again. Yay! Oops, just a little more of the artichoke pencil to even out the layers. And a little bit of that brown here.
just to enhance the contrast a little bit more. Before I shade the glass, I'm gonna add the goldenrod. Because there's quite a bit of a reflection here, because Jamie's just sitting right behind the candle holder. And of course there's also going to be a reflection on the glass. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of a warm gray. I'm taking 50% warm gray. To make that glass pop out a little more. And he's gonna get some eyebrow color as well, because I didn't do so last time. Gonna use some of that color to just add a little bit more to the reflection on the fabric, because the goldenrod didn't really come through. Was a little bit too light. And because that boy here doesn't have a lot of stuff that has to be done on his part, I'm gonna color the candles and make a little progress there. So I'm gonna add my yellow ochre. And I'm gonna use 30% French gray for the candles themselves here. I'm gonna disregard the candle holder for now though. Oh, I forgot a little bit of the jacket here, like the inner section. go. So I'm gonna take the, no, not the light umber, the other brown. The chocolate maybe? Yeah, I'm gonna take the chocolate pencil to, and the sienna brown to color the chair. Though this is not clothes, and I kind of wanted to concentrate on clothes here. That whole section of the picture would be done by then, so I think it is totally fine to not color Mrs. Fitz's dress now and Hamish's clothes, because, well, he's sitting down there, but go in for that midsection, have that done. Brown pencil. And then go on next week to either color the background or the table, and only then focus on Hamish and Mrs. Fitz. And of course, I do have to bring in the goldenrod before I shade with my 90% French French gray, because it would be really hard to layer that highlight on top, if not at all impossible. A little more of the sienna brown. And just a smidge more of the goldenrod on the wood. And then we've got kind of like a leather or something back there. So I'm going to use the light umber. And the chocolate. And my shading, of course, is done with the 90% French gray. And now on to that little boy, and I'm gonna take just a light gray, which is 30% warm gray. There is not a lot to him to work with, and a little bit of 50% warm gray. Just added a little bit of goldenrod for a reflection of the light, a little bit of the light gray, and I'd say I'm done for today. This is how far I got. I hope you enjoyed watching along. Maybe you're working on that page too and like to use similar colors that I used. I have a blog post up by now that lists all of the pencils I used today, so you can just read up on them and maybe use them in your picture as well if you so desire. I will see you next week with the next part of this piece. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do the background first or if I'm gonna work on the table. I will decide that throughout the next couple of days. Thank you very much for watching. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And have a lovely day. So do something artsy, enjoy yourselves, and I'm gonna see you very soon. Very, very soon. Like in a couple of videos. Take good care, guys. Bye.